Welcome to the Dangerous Man Podcast, where we talk about how to become a better man, take responsibility for our mission, create value for others, and the many failures and lessons we've learned along the way. Stay dangerous.
Welcome to the Dangerous Man. I'm your host, Adam Thooft, joined by co-hosts
John Kostohris.
What is going on, John?
How are we doing today, guys?
Yeah, so you may or may not notice that that you can see me. It's wild. You may or may not notice this because we're just decided to wing it and are going after it. But we're bringing you something a little extra today, and not just the videos, because normally this is just me and John, but we got someone extra special on for you today. He is an aspiring storyteller, a short-form video expert with over 1 million views on YouTube, and he is a student of the art of conversation. Joe Patros, what's up, man?
Let's go.
Wow. So he said it was going to be fire when he introed me. It was fire. I am fired up.
I kind of know what I'm doing.
A couple episodes in, you may have a slight idea.
Yeah.
Also,
he's also just that good, so we can say it.
Joe's just that awesome, yeah.
when I told him to say that I'm a short form video expert, I slightly exaggerate. I like to think the goal is at least 1 billion views. So until then, I don't feel like I'm an expert, and I feel like also expert can be correlated to master. And they say to master anything is 10,000 hours, and I'm definitely nowhere close.
That's where you're headed, though.
So that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And but that's also what they say is that if you want to get somewhere, say you're there, and then you end up forcing yourself to get there much faster. So by self-proclaiming as a short form video expert, I'm therefore going to grapple myself up to short form video expert much faster than if I just let it go about in its own organic way.
So we'll have another episode with you later. It'll be like 5 episodes after that.
No, that's exactly right.
Yeah, like in 6 weeks when you're 10,000 hours deep.
No, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's interviews of people that they do it in the same day every single year. I think Billie Eilish did this once. They do it the same day every single year, and they always look back at their younger self. They're like, that person was so foolish. They had no idea what was going on. I feel like that's gonna be the same way. I like to think I'm a short form video expert. I know I can conversate with anybody. All these things. When you look back, you're like, that person knew nothing. Mm-hmm. And that's part of what's exciting about it, though. The journey. They always, people that are successful, based on what I hear, they always say that the journey was way more important and way more exciting than the actual destination. Once you get there, you're there, and it's like, what's so crazy about this? But the journey is where you learn, where you grow, where you dive deep. And so I'm just trying to, live in the moment. And I am a short form video expert, but that's really the goal,
Oh yeah.
Man. Wow.
You'll get there in the future and look back on this episode and be like, wow, how far I've come, but also how far I was going and like how fast I was going.
Yeah, for real. Well, the podcast too. I mean, we were chatting before this just about chopping up content and, just about documenting your life instead of, really creating from an original state. And that kind of inspired me. Like I create out of originality, and that's exciting. But at the same time, so that's my bread and butter is the, creating the originality. Yeah. But kind of finding a balance between documenting your life and creating content out of that and then being original. I think there's a sweet spot there that people are going to find. When you have people like Mr. Beast that hyper produce, you have people like Gary Vee that literally document everything. And I think there's a sweet middle in there of, finding people that love to hyper produce, but then people that love to just document, finding that sweet spot of some production and some documentation. And so therefore, you'll have a nugget that is just super hyper produced. That was a crazy quality piece of content. Then you'll also have the vulnerable real life documentation that people are doing. And so I think it's exciting how young social and content is. Yeah. It's exciting where it could go. In a year it could be like documentation's dead, hyperproduction's dead. We just have no idea where it's going to go, but it's just exciting to be a part of that process. Just creating from because I love creating, just creating for the sake of creating, and then just iterating off that and just learning new ways of creation through just the pure love of it,
Yeah. So you have like this pure love for creation, Joe, that you're like really passionate about right now. I can tell you're like super passionate about it. How do you feel like you kind of like got there?
Dude, I'll be honest, and this is kind of a hot take, but when I was 15, I started watching Logan Paul vlog every single day.
I feel like that's a hot take.
I could see that.
Dude, a hot take. I mean, he's a hated individuul, but I started watching him every single day. And what's crazy is that he posted every single day. Dude, you have no idea the level of, the level of difficulty that is to do something for 365 days straight. Anyway, but I watched his vlog religiously every single day. And just to see, that planted a seed. And I can't really put my finger on what it was that was so, just maybe how natural it was for him or how much fun he was having. But that planted a seed in me that just grew and grew and grew. And so I had a little YouTube channel that was called Joe Crypto Joe that I started in just after COVID. And I did just a couple videos about a video game and whatever. I quit. But just that continued to grow the love for the creation and for the content. And from there, it grew. And I always knew I was going to start. And I always knew I was going to start because I loved it, not because I was going to clout chase or I was going to chase the money. I just didn't know when. And then eventually, about a year after that, I just started creating clips and I started creating original content, original short form content. And I just was like, but I've always known from the beginning that it's going to suck. You're going to suck at the beginning. In the first 50, in the first 100 videos you make, it's going to suck. It just is. And you have to accept that. It's just a barrier you have to get over, but just keep at it. And so I knew that from the time that I started this channel, the channel that I currently post to, till now, I just knew it's going to suck. It's going to suck. You're always going to look back at your past videos. You're going to say they suck. So that was just a blessed mentality that I had going in was we're not going to quit because they suck, because they are going to suck. We're not going to quit because that. The only reason we quit is if I die, type of deal. Like this is a lifelong journey for me because I'm doing it because I love it. And so I just started posting videos and just had a ball. I just had a ball. And what's motivating is when you have people, your friends and family come up to you, people that, maybe your family is going to, say, oh, you do, it's great, and it's not really great.
It's great. You made a video. Oh,
so proud of you, Joseph.
Your family is probably going to say that. Let's be honest. But when friends or even acquaintances say, hey, I saw your stuff. It popped up on my feed. I think it was dope. I subscribed. That's what fires me up. Yeah. When other people start reaching out and when I stop, and another thing is when I stop posting and people say, hey, like, why did you stop posting?
Where the vids, man?
Where the vids been? People started saying that. And that's how I was like,
real.
Dude, not only, I love this and now I'm able to then share this love and this passion with other people. And they're starting to actually take notice and consume my content, not just because we're friends or because we're family, but because they actually enjoy my content.
Yeah.
That just added fuel to the fire. So it's really been a lifelong thing, a lifelong brewing. It's just, I love the idea of creating an artificial world. And you get to decide everything about that artificial world. You get to decide the vibe of that artificial world. You get to decide how people perceive. I'm sure there's like deep insecurities and wounds behind that, but that's just where like being able to create my own artificial world and then share that with other people and them to see it the way that I wanted them to see it. Yeah. That was super attractive to me as well. Yeah, I guess that's kind of how it started, and it's just it's a train. Once it's moving, it doesn't stop. Once that train leaves the station, it is not my desire to just iterate and get better and better. Is just it's through the roof.
Can't stop, won't stop.
I think it's actually really awesome too. Like one thing that I'm kind of picking up on is like you're saying I am passionate about this. I got onto something. The flame has been lit and it's being fueled, and things like friends being like, oh my gosh, like where's the content, keep it coming, like, and you're like, oh, people listen to this, like watch this stuff, and and the attitude you have is absolutely right, because one of my mentors told me, he said, if you create content, if you were to pick a channel, say it's Instagram, and you were to post every day for a year, you would never have to worry about money again. But people don't do that. People can't even commit to something for, they say like 95% of podcasts, they don't even put out 10 episodes. But there's this idea that saved Adam and I from before we even started.
Yeah.
We said the inspiration was that we are going to realize that we're going to suck.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not going to be the reason we quit. And people won't even discover you until how many TV seasons or shows have you not discovered until there was already 3 seasons out
or 10 seasons.
Yeah, before you even heard of it before.
For real.
Yeah.
Or like a band that's had 5 albums out already. Like you rarely start with the beginning, and even when you do, it's there's usually more of an authentic feel with it, so it's fine. Like don't worry about it. Nobody's gonna see it anyways. But I think this is special here because we all have that mindset. And this is the first interview that Adam and I have done with another creator.
Mm-hmm.
We've had other dangerous men on the show sharing their stories, but this is kind of a fun special thing because we're all just a few years into this ourselves, and so Adam and I are really excited for all those watching, listening back home. To kind of hear a little bit of Joseph's
we hope you're
story.
watching. We're not entirely sure if it.
We hope you're
maybe it never uploaded, and who knows?
Or you're just listening on Spotify, but
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So, but yeah, we'd love to hear just kind of like when did you? Because this is something we're really passionate about on this show. Is like when did you realize that you were called to become a dangerous man, a better man, to grow, to do something great with your life? Because you have that spark, you have that vision, that purpose, and a lot of guys. They have it in them, but it's not been lit. It's not been awakened yet. And we just love to hear that journey story and kind of where you're at today. So yeah, man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This got me
go.
fired up. Thank you, John. Yeah. I come from a beautiful family. I have 6 siblings, 2 very loving parents, very solid, secure home. But yeah, like you said, similar to a lot of men now, I always believed that I had it, but I just never figured out how to let it out. And there's a bunch of reasons for that, but I went through most of my life just mediocre at best. And it's just because I was complacent, I didn't need to push myself in order to really do anything. I was just naturally gifted at sports. I was naturally gifted in school. And so I just didn't need to push myself to do anything. Home was secure for me. I had plenty of friends because my neighbors were my cousins. Things were just gifted to me just with a bow and a wrapped gift, just every single thing I could possibly need was just gifted to me. And so I just didn't push myself ever. So I went through, even through high school, there were so many regrets that I have in sports, in friendships, where I just allowed them to go by the wayside, allowed opportunities to go by the wayside just because I had never pushed myself like that to rise to the occasion in certain opportunities that I had. It wasn't even until my junior year, my junior year of college,
Wow.
I take that back. My senior year of college, midway through, I did an extra semester, so it feels like junior year, but it was my senior year of college, which was even wilder, halfway through, that I really had a wake-up call. At the school I went to, we had a J term. So basically what that means is there's first, you have your fall semester and your spring semester, and in between that, there's January, which is known as the J term, which is basically they take semester-long classes and they shorten them down to a month, which is nice, and they're cheaper as well, but then you can get extra credits in January, not have to worry about doing extra time at school.
Or you can take January off and just have a real big break.
Yes, that is very true. I never did that because I was always behind in school. So, and just because I was lazy, I was extremely lazy. I will say this now, guys, I was the laziest person that you have ever met. I would stay up late on my phone, especially when I was in college. Oh my gosh, when I had that freedom, I would stay up late on my phone, sleep in late. I would literally, all I had to worry about was school. That's all I had to worry about, and I would skip classes, did no homework, and my excuse was I didn't enjoy school. And so I literally wasted, because I was lazy, I wasted years of my school. And so anyway, so it's J term of my senior year. I've had at this point, I've realized that I'm not going to graduate with my friends in the spring.
Wow.
And so I'm just kind of down. I'm not depressed. I don't think I've ever been depressed, but I was definitely very sad and disappointed in myself. And so I was having a very crummy January. And on top of it, there was this girl that I liked that didn't feel the same about me. And that was a bummer because my roommate, who was one of my best friends, he had just gotten a girlfriend and he started spending more time with her. And so he was spending less time with me. And so everyone was gone for the January.
Gotta spend time with the bros, man.
Well, I had been. That's the thing. We did literally everything together, me and him. But then he got a girl and then see ya. I had this phenomenal family. I mean, I had plenty of friends, but I just didn't know how to reach out to my friends. I felt like I needed to be super independent. I felt like I couldn't be vulnerable with people. I felt like I needed to be a man. I needed to, I needed to hide all my emotion. I mean, just so many things wrong that with my mental state at that time.
Yeah.
And so I was in a bad place, probably one of the worst places of my life. And I just remember one day just being in the absolute pits. And as much as I hate to say it, I ride on emotion. When I'm feeling high, I'm feeling high. And I know it's common, but when I'm feeling high, I'm feeling high. When I'm feeling down, it's hard for me to get things going. I really need to be in a positive state of mind. I'm not like, I'm just going to tough this out. I need to be in a positive, emotional state in order to really, keep things on track, if I'm honest. So I was just in a terrible place. And I just remember one day being in probably the worst place of my life. And I was like, God, I don't know what's going on. I don't even know if you really exist. I'm questioning your existence right now. I'm questioning who I am. I'm questioning my place. I'm questioning, I'm just questioning everything right now. I really just went down this path of questioning everything about challenging and questioning everything that I thought I had previously known to be sure. And that happened and didn't really feel anything after that for a while. But then
just kind of numb.
And so my prayer was, I was like, God, I'm losing this companion that I've had. I feel like I'm losing this companion. I feel like I just have no purpose right now. I need to find purpose right now was really my prayer. I need a companion. I need purpose. And so fast forward a couple days, I'm scrolling through Instagram and I get a DM from somebody that supposedly went to my school. And they were saying that they had this golden retriever puppy that they were trying to get rid of because they couldn't keep it anymore. And it was going to be free if you could only pay for the adoption fees. And this puppy was so, so cute. And so I saw it and I was like, oh, that is super cute. Like I would love a dog. And then it started to hit me that I had been searching for a companion. And all of a sudden here God was placing this opportunity on my lap to not only, to reassure my previous belief in him, then also to, gain this companion and then through that find new purpose for my life. And so I was absolutely fired up about the prospect of getting this puppy. And when I get my mindset on something, I get my mind set on something. So I said, I need this puppy.
Like it kind of consumes you a little bit.
Beyond, like
you had like
a
dog crib, a dog clothes, and Pinterest boards, right?
Pictures on your wall, like 15 posters.
Like I go crazy when I get obsessed. So I was like, I need this dog, and I almost sent $600 to these people. And long story short, it ended up being a scam, which It was a really good scam too. They had a bunch of people from my school following them, and they were following a bunch of people from my school, whatnot. The reason I knew it was a scam, guys, just so you know, the reason I knew it was a scam is they started to get pushy. They say, send the money today, otherwise you can't get. And they started to get pushy with it, and that's how you know that's a major red flag.
Yeah.
So it was a scam, but that seed had been planted of God being like, hey, there's maybe a plan for a puppy in your life. And so long story short, a week after that, one of my friends found me a breeder. And that was a golden retriever, and it made more sense for me to get a non-shedding dog anyway. So she found me a golden doodle breeder.
Those are sweet dogs.
And just the most amazing dogs.
Oh yeah.
And a week later, I went over and I picked one up and I bought it and I found the perfect one. This dog just kind of gravitated to me, and I bought this dog and I named him Prince. And he's been my boy ever since. But that was the moment, that moment of realization of A, my life has more purpose than this. B, that God is truly there. And C, that, I now had a new companion for my life. It was kind of a combination of that really just kind of set me on fire. And so from that, I started going on daily runs with my dog. I started getting up at a reasonable hour. I started really kind of making the realization that there was more to my life than what I had really been giving it credit for. And so it was then I wanted to drop out of school, but I decided, let's keep up with it. Let's keep it going. I've gone this far. I might as well just finish it. And so it was just a kind of a bunch of realizations of boom, boom, boom that just kind of got me on the right path. And from then, it's a slow and steady grind, but it's been starting to eat right, starting to sleep right, starting to exercise every day, starting to figure out what I'm passionate about, figure out what I really feel like my purpose is, and just striving after that. And so from then on, it's been amazing. It really has. And I find passion in social media, in content creation. I find passion in studying people and loving them through conversation.
Yeah, come on. And
being a teacher, and just these small little seeds have just kind of started to sprout and started to grow. And I'm so passionate about them now that there's no stopping it. Like I said, it's a train that's left the station, and there's always more to learn. The more I learn, the more I realize I know nothing. And yeah, it's just been, it's been the best, honestly, year and a half of my life. It's been the best year and a half of my life, hands down, without a doubt. And there's really no stopping from here. So let's keep her going, baby.
Dude.
Wow. I'm not generally like a really big animal person. And like a lot of the time I like didn't really understand why people would like get dogs. Cause I'm like, you just have to, it's just like a extra mouth to feed. You have to like, like take it out for walks. You have to do all this stuff. It's so time consuming. Like why would you burden yourself with like a dog? Like, I like having friends that have dogs because I can like pet them and stuff. And it's like kind of a good time when I'm there. But I was just like, I don't want to have like the time commitment to that because it's like, I want to do other stuff. But Joe, you talking about kind of like how Prince, like basically this dog kind of like helped you like kind of get back on track. And I'm guessing here that like, because you had to like take care of Prince, it's like, oh, he has to like eat and like go out for walks and stuff. And I got to do those at certain times. I'm not going to like take him out for a walk at like 2 a.m. Like doing those things at certain times gave you a little bit of like structure, and then you kind of like added to it there. Is that kind of what happened? Or
totally, you are spot on. And the word I use for it is just the responsibility.
Okay.
Having someone that you're responsible for outside of yourself is a game changer. It is. And I mean, it's, when you have a girlfriend, that's a little bit different because they can take care of themselves. And I mean, that's still big. There's still responsibility there, and that's still work. But when you have someone a child, I would assume I don't have a child, but I would assume a child.
I feel like that's like the strongest version of it is like what you experienced with a dog with Prince. I feel like, because like none of us three guys have any kids, at least not that I know of. Look behind but like I feel like if we did have a kid, and we've talked to Danny Jingdahl before on the podcast, and he has kids, and he talks about how it's like the most motivating thing ever, where it's like I feel like what you experienced with having a dog with Prince, it's probably like with having a kid, it's probably like 100 times that. I imagine.
My goodness.
Yeah.
If I don't give that dog food, that dog dies.
Yeah.
Just how it is. There's so many ways that if I don't give that dog water, that dog dies. If I don't let that dog out, he's gonna poop in my house. He's gonna pee in my house. He's gonna tear up the couch, and it's just thing after thing. And so it is. I break it down to responsibility, but what I've learned and what I learned through the process of getting this dog and taking care of this dog is that's just kind of the basis. From there, you branch off. Once you kind of realize that you're responsible for this, you then become more disciplined, because in order to have responsibility, you also got to be disciplined of, hey, I need to go home. I'm really enjoying my time hanging out with my buddies, but I need to go home because I have a dog that is worrying about, that I have to worry about. It's probably doing something that he shouldn't be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So you go discipline. I mean, there's just so many virtues that you can practice from just something as small as taking care of a dog. And then you can even break that down to something. If that seems like too big of a thing for you to take care of a dog, you can even break that down to taking care of plants. Anything living. That's something that I heard someone say once is a big red flag if you're starting to date somebody. If they have no living things beyond themselves, they have no animals, people, or plants. But break it down.
Catch me buying a plant real quick.
Hey, I have a maple tree that I personally groom.
Brother.
So it's a bonsai tree.
Come on, baby.
Mini one in a pot.
That'd actually be
Those are hard.
That'd be sick,
Dude, I saw like at a zoo, like it looked like a full ass maple tree, but it was like tiny in a pot, but it was like an actual tree that was like living. And I was like,
bonsai trees.
Wow, that's so cool. But at the same time, like they're hella expensive. Like I'm pretty sure a tree like that would be like over $1,000.
Oh my God. For some reason, taking care of those is the hardest thing in the world. I've never done it, but based on what I hear, it's the hardest thing in the world. And I do want to say, this is something that I got hung up on when I was first getting my life back on track. Is there's this stigma that you need to be 100. You need to be 100% immediately. You need to be the most disciplined, the most responsible. The strongest, the smartest. You need to be that immediately. You need to be the healthiest immediately. And that's just not the way it works.
Right.
No.
If you're at 0, you don't get to 100 in a day. You don't turn your life around in a day. It's slow, incremental steps. That's how you do it. You set the long-term goal of being at 100, but you don't get to 100 in day 1. And so that's why I say even something as small as getting some potted plants that you have to water every single day. That's a small incremental step, because then from there you're like, okay, I can take care of something. And you go boom, boom, boom. So just remembering Rome wasn't built in a day. Your life does not change in a day. I still fall in so many ways every single day. I still fail. I still set goals and fail my goals every single day. But I'm getting better. And so that's just the thing that I just drill into my own head, and I would tell anybody is just remember, progress is the name of the game.
Yeah.
You do not compare yourself to other people, because you will always lose that battle. Progress is the name of the game. If you take care of 1 potted plant, that's more than taking care of 0 potted plants. And then you go to 2, and then you go to 3, and then pretty soon, boom to boom to boom. It's just one small step at a day.
Just don't build a garden inside your house and have it consume your life, and you're like that weird I am the garden man, and I am in the house, and I don't do anything but garden. Man.
You might want to just buy a zoo at that point.
Yeah, just go buy a zoo like that one movie.
And you discovered a new passion, and I say all power to you, and figure out how to make money off it, and then you're really winning at life.
Yeah, exactly.
So now if you could grow a bunch of plants and it kind of takes over your house, but you make a ton of money doing it, all right, good for you.
Man.
Big thumbs up. But yeah, that's what I would just say. I'm so passionate about that, because I was in that same spot. I felt like I couldn't change, because even if I started to, I was not going to be anywhere near these people.
That's a super interesting thought. Adam and I have definitely mentioned this on the show before, and I think it's a really key thing. So I want to kind of get into it again. I love how you said Rome's not built in a day, and it's thank goodness it wasn't, because that's a lot of fucking work to do, and that's a heavy burden to carry. And I think we toe this line as men where you need to go all out 100%. I'm not saying you should. But when we put this burden of pressure of, I have to put all of the effort and actions in, and the burden of all the end results being perfect and all of my goals being established, that's just not realistic. Mm-hmm. And the reality is, what you can control is your inputs, your actions, your words, your choices, but you can't control how other people respond, whether something works or not, whether people like your ideas. You can jump and try to jump the wall, but what you can't control is, exactly what's going to happen. You can just give it your best shot. That's all you can do. And I think that's a really, really, really key philosophy of if I do just focus on jumping a little higher every day, well, by the time a year goes by, there's a good chance I'll be able to jump. Like, I think there's this really great video of this guy trying to jump across a street, like, like a residential.
Yeah.
And not like a highway or any, shit like that. But dude, the guy was like, I think he did it every day for like a month, 2 month, 3 month, 90 days, maybe we'll say. And by the end of it, he freaking scales the road, dude. And it's like,
wow.
But he took videos of him doing it every day and he played the clips and it was like and
got closer and closer
holy cow. Yeah.
I
and
feel
that's something we have to realize, that the goal is worthy of pursuit and the excellence of like give me something you're going after right now.
Something I'm going after.
It's just a nugget here.
100 million views on YouTube.
Yeah, so $100 million,
$100 million. Yes, I'm going after $100 million.
That's a phrase that rolls off the tongue in our circles here. With Alex Ramosi, shout out. But 100 million views on YouTube. That is a worthy pursuit, and a lot of guys will share their vision, their dreams. And there's too many freaking naysayers and haters out there. And Adam and I and the Dangerous Man movement and our Dangerous Men's Club, we've built a culture of you share a dream and a vision and we go, hell yeah, man, you should go do that. And when they succeed, we go, dude, give me some. Like, that's what's up, man. And so many people, I was having a conversation the other day. This guy was like, up until recently, I've always just been envious or jealous of people when they succeed. And I realized like, oh, that's actually kind of common. But getting back to our thought here, how awesome is it when you genuinely are around guys that are like, no, you should shoot big, but you actually can't control if that's going to happen or when it's going to happen, but you can like move towards that in that direction. And what we found when we studied a lot of people over in history and a lot of awesome, successful entrepreneurs that are alive today is that there was actually progress that takes place over time. And thank goodness, because I can do what I can today, but not what I can't do any more than that. But I can do, but think about it. Like, if you're watching at home, like you can start posting content. You can watch a few videos on how to do short form editing. You can get the editing tool. Maybe you can't do all of those things in one day. Maybe you could if you've got some time, or if you're skipping your classes, right? But point being, within a week or a month or a year, 100%, you can make a ton of progress. And so the one thing I think that can hold you back is thinking you need to get outputs and not realize you just need to put inputs in. But have a big dream and have belief that you're going somewhere. And that's what the recipe I'm hearing you put out. I just wanted to put that framework out there because I think that's so key for men to understand.
Yeah, like I think it's kind of the difference between like instant gratification versus delayed gratification.
100%.
I think so many people, when they set out to like achieve something, they want it to happen now because they're so used to instant gratification. Oh, like I need some dopamine. Let me just like pull up my phone. Let me eat some like sugary food. Like, whatever. Whereas like when you're trying to actually go after something and achieve a goal that's like worth achieving, it takes work and you have to grow and you have to learn skills and you have to try and fail and learn and try again. And you have to do all this stuff. It's a grind, but it's not just like you do it over and over again. You also have to learn and change how you do it and like all these things. But like, I think a lot of people are just so used to instant gratification that they don't even like really get into it. Whereas like, as they get into it, they learn, and this is what I've learned too, is that I can delay my gratification. It's not like I don't need to be happy for a year. I can delay my gratification. I can't do that yet. Like, but I can delay it for 10 minutes, an hour, like I can delay my gratification longer and longer so I can do harder and harder things. And like, I think realizing once you do enough hard things, then you realize like you almost have gratification in the midst of doing a hard thing. Cause you're like, yeah, I'm a guy that does hard things. Yeah, that's who I am. Kind of becomes part of your
Respect
identity.
Yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's something that people don't necessarily like understand when they set out to go do something. It's like the more you do it, like the easier it will get. It's not always going to be this way where it's like a pain in the ass to get into the gym and you're like dragging yourself there every day. there's going to be a time where you're like, hell yeah, I want to go to the gym and get a good pump going. Like there will be a time when that happens.
And I want to touch on that because
go for it.
Once you get good at something you enjoy doing, it makes it all the more enjoyable. So when I started content creation, I was trash, but I still liked doing it. I liked doing it. I enjoyed it. I did it because I enjoyed it. Now that I've gotten better, I absolutely love it because I can actually take the vision that I see for this piece of content and I can actually make that. So I just want to point that out. Yeah. I love what you're saying about delayed gratification. It is so important to remember, but just remember that the better you get, the more enjoyable it becomes. So the longer you can hold out, like giving up on something, the more fun it's going to be. Not only the better you'll be, but the more fun it is. So just remember that the better you get at something, the more enjoyable that thing becomes because you are good at it, because you can flex on everybody that you know what's up.
Dunked on, son.
And then when you go in, then you can teach people how to do it too. And then you're gratified because they're grateful that you taught them. And there's just so many reasons to just hold out when it comes to something that takes a while to learn. There's just so many reasons for that. So I love what you say about delayed gratification. It's just so important to reiterate that.
Come on, dude.
Yeah, just like imagine if more guys actually like knew like kind of that process before they like started it. Like actually like had more guys around them that had like gone after things and actually like tried. Oh, you're getting a phone call there?
Is that this phone right
here? You want to grab it?
Okay. Oh, we got some crazy stuff
going on.
Pulling
an audible here.
Wow.
I guess this is the best time to plug an ad, right?
Yeah.
Well, I got some shit you should buy, so buy it, okay?
All right.
And if you don't, fuck you, okay? Moving on.
Moving on.
How we doing?
Anyway, now that we got the problem.
Now we have to say we run ads on this show because I just ran an ad.
Yeah, hashtag not an ad. No, just kidding. We did.
Man, thank you.
But just like if guys had more guys around them, if men had more men around them that are actually going after something and are like a little bit down the road to actually like show them like, hey man, like, yeah, it sucks at the beginning. It sucks for everybody at the beginning. But once you get a little bit into it, it gets better and better and better the farther you go. Like it's like things that suck aren't always going to suck. It's not that you always have to put the same amount of effort in. Like I'm sure, Joe, when you started editing videos, it took you an eternity to edit videos. You're like, man, an entire day to edit one video? This is how did Logan Paul do this where he had like a freaking video every day? I'd like get wiped for a week. You know, I'm assuming you probably experienced that.
Oh my goodness.
And like now how long does it take you to edit videos?
Much more efficient.
Yeah. So it gets shorter and shorter and you get better and better. So it's not like, oh, like, yes, it might be painful at first. Like, I remember going to the gym and only like benching 90 pounds and feeling like, oh, crap, I feel like a dweeb, you know? But, you know, now I've benched like 230. So it's like, okay.
There we go.
And that's like in a year, you know? Like I was benching 90 pounds last July. It's July now. So like.
Come on.
You know, like it makes a difference.
And I want to one last little tie I want to make there because you said something earlier. You're talking about inputs, focus on inputs and not on outputs. We're talking about the more you do something, the better you get. And so I have it's true.
Yeah.
The inputs, you cannot expect outputs. All you can do is affect inputs. But the better your inputs get, the better the outputs get. I'm not a scientist, but the numbers seem to add up that the higher quality you make, the better the output.
Come on.
So that's just something to remember as well, that again, you can only affect the input. That is all you can affect. But the more you do it, the better you get, the better those inputs get. And there is a direct correlation. You do not need me to tell you this. There's a direct correlation between the quality of input and the numbers you get on the output. That's all that needs to be said about that. So just remember that. If you are not seeing the goals and the turnout that you wanted and you expected, it's probably not because people suck. It's probably because the quality of the input wasn't up to par with the quality of the export that you wanted. Quality of the import
Yes.
was not up to the par of quality of the export. Just remember that.
Absolutely, man. And I was actually just thinking about like, what can you do to improve the inputs? And I do think that's secondary to actually getting started, right? So if you haven't gotten started yet, you can listen to what I have to say next, but I would get started and then come back and pause it, then come back to the rest of this. Finding a really good mentor that has done what you want to do in life. And obviously, like, you're a different person. Like Joe, you're your own person. And you and I actually were having a conversation about this over coffee, maybe about a month ago. And you were talking about how you do feel that there is an originality you bring to what you do, and how cool is that? And because you love it, and then there is, I think that intersects nicely with, like, if I lived in a cave and made content, and there was no way to evaluate what it was working or what wasn't. Maybe you could only get so good, is what I'm saying. But you find somebody who's actually achieving the results or the outputs that you want, and you go, well, what are they doing for their inputs? Okay. Guess what? Most universities don't have that person.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what does? The internet.
The internet.
YouTube.
Undefeated.
Like how many?
A $250, $500 online course.
Yeah.
Shell out and go after becoming better at you, because those resources are so they're so available. And instead of making an excuse about your dream not being able to happen, realize that there are so many people that want to help you because they care about you and your dream. Yeah. And that's a great starting place. Finding a mentor that actually is doing what you want to have your outputs look like.
And not just someone that claims I'm the expert. Because how many business professors at colleges actually have successful businesses?
Truth.
Because if they had a successful business, do you think they'd be a professor at a college?
If Jeff Bezos is going to teach a business class at a university, I'll sign up, dude. I'll pay tuition, bro. But I just don't think that's what's happening right now, man.
It just doesn't seem like if you're making millions of dollars in a business, why would you become a professor at a university?
See who's doing what you want to do, as we're saying, and copy that person to a T. Do exactly what they're doing.
I mean, maybe not make the exact same video.
No, exactly.
Listen,
I am saying do exactly.
At first.
At first. If you haven't started, go watch. If you want to be a video creator on YouTube, go watch a YouTube video that you liked and say the exact same words, make the exact same cuts. Get this as
same
close
emoji.
To the same.
Angle the emoji. I'm serious.
Literally to a T.
Yes.
And do that for the first however many videos it takes until you start to learn who you are in that space. Do it to a T. I could not stress that enough. I was so about, I need to be myself. I need to be original. Blah, 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 blah. No, you don't. That will come. That will come. I promise you that will come. And you'll have a little flavor from the person that you copied. You will, because that's just the way it is. But don't go thinking that you're going to be this crazy, original, successful right off the bat. It's just not how it is. Go copy who's doing it right, and eventually you'll find your own iteration.
Mm-hmm. Learn the skills that way.
And you'll do it faster, too. Much faster. And that's how you learn the skills. I am so passionate about that, just because... Don't waste your time. Do not waste your time.
Well, Russell Brunson says that you can tell who the trailblazers are in an industry because they're laying face down on the ground with arrows in their back.
Mm-hmm.
So, model the successful, and what closes are they using in sales? Memorize them. What font is pretty trendy right now? Use it. There's a reason these things are popular, because people like it and it's working.
It's kind of like you got to
start with what works, then be original off of that. But if you get to a baseline of good, and I remember I actually did this with, I'm really into building funnels, websites, copywriting. And what I literally did for the first year was I went and found funnels that were performing well or that I really admired from successful businesses, right? And I would quite literally recreate them frame by frame, color pixel by color. I would actually match everything. I had Google Chrome tools. What fonts are they using? Because guess what? The font wasn't in the software. What did I do? Went and found the font, downloaded it, uploaded it. And what am I learning? I'm learning how to hunt. I'm learning how to create. I'm learning how to be a copywriter. I'm learning how to be a funnel builder and how to be a graphic designer. You know, I'm realizing what goes on behind the scenes, the scenes, you know. Oh, when I scroll, the video goes down with me. Oh, but it doesn't when I do it. So what do I need to do? Learn some basic coding skills. How to get, you know, now I'm Googling how to code a video and all of a sudden I'm programming website a little bit. And now you're realizing what goes into that skill, that role. If you want to work that job, you go in and they say, well, this is kind of what we want. And you're like, oh, I know how to do that. Why? Because you modeled somebody and you learned how to do it. And then, then make your own. But at first I agree, man. You got to just do exactly what they did because that's how you learn the skill.
Yeah. It's almost like you have to like know the rules before you can like break them. Like you have to copy people until you kind of know why they do it.
Right.
And before you can actually like deviate and be like, oh, we could do this thing and we could do that thing. It's like, actually, I have to understand, why do they use that font that they use? And sometimes you just got to know that it works. Not like why it works. But
yeah. And the more you do it and the more you do, the more bandwidth that you have, the more that you input, the more you're going to learn about yourself. So if you go and if you say, okay, I want to learn how to do this general thing, be a content creator, be a copywriter, there are so many smaller skills that go into that. Like you talked about hunting, and there's probably, you have to write the hook. There's just so many small, little, more niche skills that go into that. And you learn what you actually like and what you don't like much faster by doing everything.
Yeah.
And so for me, when it comes to content creation, there's the scripting, there's the pre-production, there's the shooting, there's the actual production, and then there's the editing. And I learned by doing all of that myself, I learn actually what I really love is the editing, or actually what I really love is actually the filming. And while I still have to do all of it for now, as I become more and more successful, quote unquote, I can then delegate those jobs that I don't necessarily love inside my discipline. I can then outsource those to third parties to do that. And then I can then focus all of my energy on exactly what I love doing, and I can get so much better at that.
And
dude, this is
what part of that do you love doing?
Guys.
Yeah, I hate it. I love the editing. I love the editing. I wish I loved the actual shooting more, because I love the idea of building personal brand. But I love the editing. I love seeing the picture of what I want it to look at. I love seeing how I want it to look and being able to turn the clips that I've recorded into that. So I'll find a happy medium between, the actual shooting, and I'm learning to love the scripting, but I've always just winged it. Honestly, I wing most of my stuff, and I'm learning to be better at scripting because that's so important. But it's the editing that really has my heart. And the filming a little bit.
People don't know what they want to do, but the best advice is just to go do a whole bunch of things, cast a wide net, and then niche down. Once you realize what you want to spend your time doing, what you love, what do you love? Well, you're starting to figure it out, editing and whatnot. Tell us a little bit, man. So you had this awesome story you were talking about where, you got this dog Prince, and you started to really kind of like, I guess, pivot out of school and getting a companion and starting to commit to just putting inputs into content creating. And we, obviously we introed you a little bit in the beginning, but what are the kind of the elements of, what would you say you're really passionate about right now in your purpose? I know we kind of hinted at it with some short form, but I'd love just to hear you kind of go off on like, what are you up to now that you realize the importance of being a good, great, dangerous man? Like what is that going to look like for you the next 1, 2, 5, 10 years? And what are you up to right now this year that has your interest? I
realized very recently that the most valuable aspect of my mentality that I have, and that I think I can pass on and teach people, is the ability to believe that you can do anything you put your mind to. The true ability to believe you can do anything you put your mind to. I don't think people really grasp and wrap their head around what that means. The idea that anything that comes in front of me, anything, and I stress anything that comes in front of me, I can and I will learn how to do it. You hear so often people say, oh, I'm just not good at that. Oh, that's just not for me. I'm not made to do that. And while some people are more exposed to be better at certain things, you can learn to be good at anything. And so for me, that's just what I am so proud to have, that mentality. And that's just what I stress and what I think I can pass on to people is just the mentality of go out and just whatever sounds fun and what sounds exciting, just know deep in your being that you can be phenomenal. You can be the best. Believe you can be the best at it. So that's something that's really important to me. So,
dude.
So that kind of shapes my view of anything that I end up doing. Right now, I'm very passionate about the idea of conversation. I'm very passionate about the idea of EQ, emotional intelligence, and social skills, and the value that brings to your tool set, as they say.
Right.
And so the thing that the gift that I was given that you can learn, but I was just given, which I'm very grateful for when it comes to conversation, is the ability to be a good listener. So I've always been a naturally good listener, and I've always been a listener at heart and a speaker. So I've been a listener first and a speaker second. And so that's what I would stress to people. If you feel like you don't know how to talk to people, if you feel like you want to get better at talking to people, evaluate yourself. Ask yourself, am I a speaker first or am I a listener first? And I would challenge you to look around at the people you know that you enjoy hanging out with the most and ask yourself, is that person a speaker or is that person a listener? And I would put money that person is a listener.
Wow.
Dang. It's crazy. So there was a study done of I think it was extroverts in a group, or it was just people that like to talk about themselves. And people that like to talk about themselves, they found that when they talked more in a group setting with a bunch of strangers, that they felt like they learned more about the group when they talked more versus when other people talked more. So that's just something to remember, is you make people feel comfortable around you, which is the ultimate goal. It is the ultimate goal to make someone feel comfortable around you.
100%.
Because everyone can talk for as long as you can. If you make people feel comfortable around you, then they will feel like they know you much better. And again, that's the ultimate goal. So
get them talking.
And
then they'll feel like they know you.
And that's the end goal. Once you have that person feeling comfortable, they will talk. Because everyone has passions, and everyone can talk about their passions forever. And so the first goal, so I would say the basis of any good conversation is being a good listener.
Let's talk about that. So we love charisma here on the show. We've talked a lot about communication and whatnot and public speaking, but this is a real treat, I think actually, for those listening, because I don't know that we've really stressed a whole lot about listening before. And anyways, I'm excited about this. But what would, I guess, I'm down for you to go wherever you want with this, but I am kind of curious myself of how do you make people comfortable? I feel like that's step one.
Dude.
So take it.
You nailed it.
Take it. You're a John Kostohris out there in the world, chopping it up and making conversation. And it's almost to me like this is something that I kind of picked up, and I'm thinking I'm not sure if it's a good habit or a bad habit. I'm going to be honest with that. But when people don't seem like they're comfortable yet, then I'll be like, well, I'll just carry the conversation so that they don't feel like pressured. But what I don't know how to do is bridge it to get them talking and me listening. And so, like, what would you say would go into that?
Yeah.
How could you, how would you approach that?
Dude, all right, let's open the floodgates.
Okay, man.
Yeah.
We're all students of the art of conversation here, man. So
yes. the very first step. So when I approach a conversation, I think that's for people, that is the hardest part, is beginning a conversation, because there's all the unknowns. Is this person going to think I'm weird? It's just, you judge someone so fast that it's so much, there's so much worry and there's so much anxiety around just beginning a conversation. Once the conversation is flowing, things are going great, it's easy sailing, smooth sailing. So the most important part is the first part of the conversation. So I would say, if you have time to like prep, even just for a few seconds before, take a few deep breaths. The calmer you are, the calmer they're going to be. That people just, it's crazy how body language says the most about somebody. So be calm. Go into the conversation as calm as you can be. If you have time, if you have plenty of time to prep, if you're going into a meeting, if you're going into an interview, look up Wim Hof breathing techniques.
Dude,
I don't know if you've ever talked about Wim Hof.
Oh, hell yeah.
That will calm you the F down. You will feel great. You'll feel fired up. So be as calm as you can going into that. Once you go into that conversation, if it's clear to you that that you guys have similar interests. So I would say the first part of it would be go into that conversation and just be present. And what I mean by that is look around. What's happening? Am I in a room with a bunch of, let's say, unicorns? Point out the unicorns. Talk about the unicorns. If they have a shirt on that you think is cool, talk about the shirt. Be present. Notice things around you. Compliment their hair. Don't make it weird. Compliment their hair. Compliment their whatever. Notice things around you that you can point out that could lead to conversation.
Use your surroundings.
I would say that was step one.
Yeah.
Once you've kind of talked to them for a little bit, if you can kind of pick up that we might have a lot of things in common, start to try to harp on commonalities and just, say something. And if it lands, then use that as a segue to start conversating about that. If it doesn't land, take a step back and talk about something else. The goal and the way to make somebody feel comfortable is by figuring out what their passion is and asking about their passion. So it's a slow, but it's not always an easy process. Sometimes it's harder than other times. But if you can figure out what the person you're talking to, what their passion is,
dude,
you have hit a home run. Person will think you are their best friend.
Lights out.
And so once you've kind of bantered a little bit small talk. I know a lot of people don't like small talk. Small talk is sometimes necessary. Once you've had some small talk and you start to ask questions, and again, part of listening is asking questions. So I would say for me, I talk much less than I listen. And when I do talk, often it's asking a question. So learn to ask good questions. I wish I would have said that at the beginning. Along with listening, asking good questions is the next most important thing. If you told me that you have a rubber ducky that's yellow, that's all you told me, we could have an hour-long conversation about the rubber ducky, because I would ask about 1 billion good questions about that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so just keep asking questions, and eventually you're going to harp on something that lands. And once you find their passion, start asking questions. And it's easy just to ask, you like, oh, so you could ask some base layer. Oh, so when did you learn this passion? Or why do you like this passion? But what I've found is when asking about passions, ask from a place of not knowing anything about that, of being an absolute amateur. Ask from a place to say, if you were to start again today, how would you do it? So someone recently asked me, like, oh, I need to make a YouTube short about this. How would you do it? And I lit up. I was fired up about talking about how I think they should make this YouTube short, what little tips here and there to think about. I was fired up. So once you get into that conversation, you've been asking good questions, you've been probing a little bit, and you've touched on a passion, and you can tell. It's very easy to tell what people are passionate about.
Light up.
They will light up.
Yeah.
Start asking questions from a place of not knowing anything.
Wow.
And that will light them up. And once you get someone talking about their passion, that will just keep the conversation flowing for absolutely as long as necessary.
That's just so good, man. I love conversation. I love talking about conversations. This is great. But the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, this is kind of This is like a 1920s book. It's kind of known as a staple of communication, of influence.
I think it's like a 1940s
skills.
book, but yeah.
Yeah, and Adam always checking me on my numbers.
Fact checking John just a little bit.
I actually think it's from the 80s, Adam.
I'm pretty sure they talk about World War II or a war in it. So I'm like, I don't know if it's
oh golly. Anyways, yeah, that's great. I'm with you, man. 1940s
Shout out
book.
the 40s.
So it's a 1940s book, and anyways, Dale Carnegie he's awesome. He's a wizard of conversation. But one thing he said was he just tells a lot of stories in the book, which I love it. And one of the chapters he goes into a like a social scenario, and I can't remember exactly who the guy is, but I think he was just like at somebody's house, and there was, I don't know if it was an esteemed person. It was just a dude. We're just gonna go with he was a dude. and the guy, and Dale Carnegie is listening and asking him questions for like 3 hours. And at the end of it, the dude he's talking to says, oh my gosh, he started telling everybody, oh, he's just talking about Dale Carnegie. He's just an excellent conversationalist. He's so skilled. The dude never said anything. He never told a single story. It was purely him just getting this guy talking the whole time. And in his mind, he was the best conversationalist he'd ever had. Why? Because he just got to hear his own voice the whole time. And I mean that a good way. I think it's actually a really good thing. It's very honoring to give somebody the floor to share. I think there's nothing worse than having your status lowered by, people not thinking you're intelligent or you have good things to offer, or that, but when they think you're the legend and they just want to shut up and listen, how awesome do I feel? You know what I mean? But yeah, that kind of brings another question to me, which
can I touch on that for real fast?
Go after.
I just want to say one more thing, because again, this is something that a preconceived idea that I had. I had this idea in my head that being a listener was somehow a weakness, that somehow being a listener and a questions asker somehow meant that I wasn't as good as someone that was a talker first. And I think that this might be something that some people have, that like, oh, as a powerful speaker and someone that can, that can take charge, that person is somehow better or in a higher place than someone who is a good questions asker and who is a listener. And I just want to reject that. That is such a lie. Do not let that get in the way. So I just want to, reaffirm, and I want people to truly understand that being a good questions asker and being a listener is way harder than being a good speaker. And just to absolutely drill that in your brain, if you can learn how to listen and you can learn how to ask good questions, it's easy to learn how to talk about yourself, to learn how to talk in general. It is very easy.
Yeah.
It is much harder to learn how to be a good listener and how to be a good questions asker. So do not buy into that lie that being a big speaker and being able to talk about yourself is somehow better or more powerful than being a good questions asker. Do not.
Yeah, that's a great ad, man. Holy cow. One of my favorite things to do to start a conversation, I'm glad you said use your surroundings, but a basic one is like you're with somebody and you look at something else happening in the room and you just make a comment about it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like there's like a dog and he's like whining, or and you just turn to the person and you shoulder to shoulder looking at the dog. You're like, huh, man, he's so cute, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh, he really is. And then it's like you're in, or just making fun of stuff like, dude, look at that way that guy's dancing, isn't that? And then they're like, oh, that's funny. And it's, just making observations about the scene. That's really good. You've made them comfortable. You started getting talking about themselves. You found their passion. Yeah, man, that's in your mind. That's like a win, right? You walk away and that was an excellent conversation. What else would you want to add to that? Or what else do you love about?
And people, the thing to remember is that other people want to have good conversations as well. So I also had this lie in my head that, if I go be vulnerable with somebody by trying to start a conversation and I say something because you are putting yourself in a place of vulnerability. They could shut you down. They could make fun of you. They could laugh at you, whatever. I mean, those are all reasonable possibilities. But people want to have, geez, guys.
You're good, man.
People want to have good conversation. And so just keeping that in the back of your mind, whenever you go put yourself out there by starting a conversation with somebody, they're not most people, some people hurt people. So hurt people might, shut you down, make fun of you, whatever, but that's such a small percentage of people. Most people want to have quality conversations. And so they will be willing to then put themselves out there and then have a quality conversation with you. And so you thinking, if I say this and then I shut up, it's going to be awkward silence. It's probably not going to be awkward silence because that person wants to have a conversation. They probably found their own thought or developed their own thought based on what you said and have what they're going to say ready to then add on to that. And so do not be discouraged from starting conversations with strangers. I myself, I'm very much introverted. I'm very much a people pleaser. I'm worried about what people think of me, but that's not, you can't think like that. You can learn how to use that to your advantage by understanding that other people want to have good conversations. So that is one of the things that I would say. Another thing that's very important that I'm learning, that is it's slow and steady, but I'm learning, is the power of silence and how it's okay to have silence in conversation. I think as you were kind of talking about earlier, you said, I'm worried about, trying to make this person feel comfortable and whatnot. And so then I just propel conversation. And I think that has a lot to do with the possibility of being like insecure about having silence in a conversation. Because if you let a conversation go silent for long enough, someone's going to think of something to say. It's not just going to be silent for the next however long you're with them. You're going to think of something else to say. And so if you're conversating with someone and you're on a line of thought and you have a great conversation about it and it just naturally dies, there might be a little period of silence there before, either you guys go about your separate ways or you think of something else to say. And don't be afraid of that silence. Just because it's silence doesn't mean it's awkward. It's only awkward if you make it awkward. That is very true. And so just learning to be okay with silence will help you have higher quality conversations. Because, and this is why I hate being on my phone having earbuds in, is because you negate conversation. You negate the possibility of conversation.
Dude, yeah.
So I think about with my roommates and things like that, when I have my earbuds in around my roommates. I mean, like I have good conversations I have good conversations with my roommates when I don't have my earbuds in. But I could also have good conversations with my roommates when I do have my earbuds in. So it negates the possibility of good conversation. And so by learning how to be okay with silence, you're going to just elevate your level of conversation ability, because you're not going to feel like I need to end this conversation and get out of here every time there's a split second of silence. You're not going to think I have to interject something stupid or random that doesn't make any sense in this context just because there's a second of silence.
Wow.
So that's another little nugget too that I'm really learning myself, is learn to be okay with silence. Silence does not mean bad conversation. Silence does not mean awkwardness. It just means there's a transition between talking about this and talking about that. Simple as that.
Use it to your advantage. Let it help you transition, or one thing that sometimes I get cut off a lot in conversation because I will pause and think about something. People assume that I don't like that. I like, oh, interesting. Let me think about what I want to say about that. And I have to continue to reassure people. I'm like, no, I just am like marinating with that and want to like speak from the heart when I respond. But I have noticed that I allow myself to do that, and it's a really cool thing, I think. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's something I want to personally ponder on. So thank you. Thanks for sharing that, man. I think that one was for me. So thanks.
Love that, dude. I absolutely love that.
Conversation is such an interesting topic, because when it comes down to it, like the words that you say, like the specific actual, like the words that you're saying, is only 8% of what you're communicating. I learned this in doing sales. a lot of it's also like body language and tonality. And if I'm going to talk really, really fast and say all this crazy stuff, you're going to get kind of confused and you're like, okay, something else is happening. This is going crazy. But if I'm talking really slow, then you know I'm saying something more important. And it makes you pay more attention because there's something important that I'm saying right now. You think it's more important just because I'm slowing down and adjusting my tonality. But then I can talk really, really fast and say something other something and try to talk like an auctioneer or something like that. Going once, going twice, you know. And then it's like something else completely different. So how you actually like talk in a conversation is so different. And I find myself a lot of times in conversation, Joe, you brought up earlier, like trying to ask questions and like listen and stuff. It's like, how do you, like, if you're asking questions and like sometimes you want to feel like you have to carry the conversation because there might be like some positive silence. Like, how do you keep yourself from just blabbing and like actually keep it on? Like, okay, let me keep listening. Let me keep, and I'm sure like at a certain point, this can become more natural where you're just like, oh, I don't need to interject here. I don't even feel like I need to. But like, how does somebody go from like, say, feeling like they always need to like, oh, there's silence, I need to talk, or oh, they said something really interesting, let me talk about myself now. I really want to talk about myself now. How do you like keep yourself from like ruining the conversation in a way and actually like and like making sure you're still focused on asking questions and like kind of drawing out their passion? And like how do you do that?
Yeah, 1,000%.
I'm also curious too, if I can add into that question. Is there a way to make it a win-win? Maybe we can come back to that. But you know.
I see all conversation as win-win because I'm a lifelong learner just in general. And I know that there's things I can learn from every single person in this world, you know? And so just having that mentality going in is incredibly important. Yeah. As far as how to not ruin conversation through just feeling the need to go. It unfortunately has a lot to do with, I think it has a lot to do with practice. So obviously the more you practice, the better you get. But I think another part of that is understanding and just realize before you go into conversation, reminding yourself that you are not the main attraction in this conversation, that you are here to be a good listener and to be a good questions asker. And you're here to learn about this person. And by doing that, you are loving that person. You are loving that person. And through that, in giving that in that way, you will end up receiving. That's just the way it is. The givers end up receiving. The givers end up, that's always how it is. And so I would just say to you is just to those people that feel like they don't know how to settle down and calm down, just remember that your job, your role in this conversation is to be a good questions asker and to be a good listener, and go into that. That's the
mentality.
That's the mentality that you go into that conversation with. And if you go in with that mentality and you start, and it also along those lines is the more you talk about yourself, it's kind of like dominoes. If you start talking about yourself, it's going to be easier to talk about yourself, and then more and more and more. If you start asking questions, it's going to be easier to ask questions, and then more and more and more. So if you go into a conversation and you lead off by asking a question, and then you follow it up with the second question, my bet, I'm not a betting man, but my bet is the next thing you say is going to be a third question, not something about yourself. And that's just the way it is. And I mean, there's always a natural flow to things, and eventually you'll input. I talk about myself all the time, but that's not my main priority. My priority is to learn from this person by asking questions. And I think if you can frame your mentality in that way, when you go into every single conversation, it's going to get easier and easier to stop being the blabber and feeling that anxiety of what's going to happen when it goes silent. And I think it's going to be easier to have high quality conversation.
I think this goes back to, even our intro to the podcast, which is, we're here to provide value to others, right? We're actually here to serve, you know? And I think that's kind of lost in the modern world, or it sounds too religious of a thing, but it's not religious at all. Serving people is the most influential people in the world are servants, and they give a damn about people, and they have their eyes on something bigger, more important in life, and people follow them because they feel that you care about them. One of my favorite quotes in the world right now, that Peter Jengdahl, he's one of our guys in the Dangerous Men's Club, been on the show several times, that he said is, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And if that's true, then whatever I say would be me knowing, right? And people don't give a shit. And so it's like, even if you just look at it that way from I don't want to say selfish perspective, but if you think you're just going to go and talk about yourself or tell interesting stories and be the cool guy in the room, and then nobody cares, then what was the point of doing that in the first place if it doesn't work? So why not start by actually caring about what others are passionate about? And you know, people come into social environments with a lot of anxiety. It's 2024. And more than ever, people have social anxiety, depression, whatever this and that bullshit they label themselves with. But, you know, I've been there. I've been around the bush, and you walk into a room and you're like, oh. And with one person, I remember what it was like. I have a really good buddy of mine that I did door-to-door sales with. And if he's listening, he might know who he is. But he would meet me and actually introduce me to people he knew and bridge me into conversations and ask questions. Or he'd be like, oh, John knows about that, and he would like tie me in, and he was like, I felt incredibly at ease, and I was able to meet new friends and connect. And I didn't have anxiety, he didn't have anxiety, other people didn't. He made everyone feel calm, and that's what a good man who's centered in his masculinity can do. It's not about feeding his ego, because his ego's already fed. He finds the time to meditate. He finds the time to work out. He finds the time to study. He has good friends, good men that he can go and pour out to and get support. So when he's in social scenarios, he's not trying to grasp anything. He's looking out on others because he knows how much pain they're in. And if he can make it better for them, that they could go and change the world with their gift. And in my mind, that's part of the beauty of a good conversation, is you have to realize that it's not about you because it's like, oh, it's boring. It's not about you because people need what you have, and they need to discover their voice, and you're giving them opportunity to. And everybody wants to go have fun. You're totally right. So why not be the bridge agent to be strong and be centered as a man, and everybody to walk away having the best night of their life because you focus on others first. I just love your message, man. But God,
dude, breaking that ice. It's all about breaking the ice. If you can break the ice with somebody, like you said, they will have a good time. It is just, it is of utmost importance to, you know, hang on. It's going to feel, everything in your body is going to say, run, get out of this conversation, get out. But all conversation is up. It has its ups and its downs. It's going to be, you're going to have times where it's super engaging and you're both, you know, you found a commonality and it's going crazy. Then you're going to have times where it's like, it looks like this is drying up. I don't know where we're going to go with this. And you're going to want to go. But if you stick with it and keep going, it's going to find another up, and you're going to find another commonality or something else to talk about. And then you're going to have another big peak and stuff like that. So just don't feel the need to get out of conversation just because you feel it's drying up a little bit. Just keep pushing, keep talking. And you can say the same thing over and over again. So if it feels like it's drying up and I just said something, and so just pretend like I said, guys, I just had a phenomenal time on this podcast. Thank you so much. And then you guys both were just kind of nodding at me and smiling. I could just say like, yeah, I really felt welcomed by this podcast, and I really had a great time. I can say the exact same thing just in a different way. And I can keep saying, I could say a third time, I could be like, yeah, doing the video on this podcast, you know, just being able to sit across from you guys really made me feel welcome in this, you know, I really had a blast. I could just say the exact same thing in just a slightly different way.
And it makes us feel better every time.
And eventually,
that's amazing, dude. Yeah.
Eventually someone is going to
keep it going, man. You got a fourth one?
So for the next while, just keep saying
and eventually someone's going to pick it up.
Did he have a point, Adam? I can't remember.
I just feel so good about it. But
And eventually someone's going to pick it up.
Yeah. So that's actually like a really interesting thing. Cause like sometimes
I love that.
like if you're just tired in a conversation and you only got like 4 brain cells that are really trying to work real hard to figure out the next thing to say, it's like you could just say the same thing you just said. But I also think when you're in those like lull periods in conversation and you're like, oh crap, I don't know what to say. But you stick with the conversation and you don't just like, I'm going to find someone else at this party or this social event or whatever. And you actually stick with the conversation. I feel like that shows them that you care about them in a way. Because you're like, oh, this was awkward, but I'm still going to try talking to you. It can show them that you care. And especially if you go from there to finding a passion and then like popping off about it, then they're going to be like super thankful that you like kind of went through like the weird awkward phase to actually find something really cool. And then they're probably going to think that you're like the greatest person ever. But it's kind of, John, what you were talking about is like showing people that you care is like the main thing with conversation. Cause I feel like once you show people that like, hey, I care about what you're saying. I care about what you're talking about. I care about your passions. That's when they really feel like, you know, like seen, known, and loved, and actually like be like walk away from that conversation more full. And I think knowing that the person that people that you talk to are like more full from walking away from a conversation you had with them also fills you up. So like, Joe, what we were saying earlier, where it's like, when you give, you get. I almost think you might get more from giving in conversations. Like I think about some of the conversations I've had where I felt like really good after the conversation is because I did a lot of listening and asking questions. And then maybe someone said like, hey man, you really get this. I'm like, okay. And then
that's the gold star.
Yeah. And they like kept like listening or whatever. And like, I was like, I actually didn't say that much in this conversation. I was just kind of here and like trying to like soak it up and do that. And that can sometimes actually use less energy than, oh, I'm doing this thing and that thing. And I'm doing all this stuff and look at me. I'm all over the place. And like, sometimes it's like, oh, that's a bit much. Like, but when you actually care about like other people and that's the focus, I think that's when I've become more full. And I think it's so easy to like lose that if you're coming into a situation like, oh my gosh, I want, you know, and for me, who's very, very extroverted and I could, you know, probably talk about myself all day, every day. It's like, how do I actually slow myself down and be like, okay, let me learn about these people. It's like, do I just need to find like an outlet before or an outlet somewhere where I can just kind of blab about myself for a little bit? Maybe I just need to like record myself. Maybe there's going to be some just like.
Now you know why I send you so many voice memos.
Yeah. Maybe there's just going to be like I'll start a new thing where it's just Adam blabbing and I'm just going to be like talking about random stuff.
Hey, Adam, I have a great idea. You should just start a podcast.
Yeah. I wonder. It's almost like that's the reason why we started this thing.
Yeah. So Adam can hear his voice.
So I can hear myself talk. Yeah, that's the whole point to it.
Golly. I love what you're saying, Adam. And yeah, it does take a bit of like, I don't know, there's a bit of a humbling myself, right? But in your case, I don't know, you make it sound so attractive of like listening and what did you say? Listening and asking questions. But it's, you know, yeah, I really believe that that's what leaders do. And golly, if you want to be a leader, then get on that train, guys. Holy cow. And I think we're all supposed to be leaders in one way or another. You know, whether we're leading our family, our future family, our business, a team, you know. Yeah, man. And golly, just so good to, I have one more question and we can keep this one kind of brief and then we'll kind of wrap here. But I am kind of curious. Can you speak to, in the conversation, one thing that I've found to be very challenging is you get into the conversation and this happens. you kind of gaze in the room. You're, you just, never quite get settled in. Maybe you're distracted, thinking about other things, looking at your calendar, your watch. What, I think we've all been there. What would your advice be to, because I really think you can't get anything out of a conversation unless you're truly present.
Mm-hmm.
But how, are there some conversations that just aren't worth being present and I should just get out of them right away? Or should I go into every conversation being I'm going to listen and ask, how do you be present and not be utterly distracted by a million things happening around you or on your phone?
1,000%. And I will say that you say, are there any conversations that aren't worth having? Yes. Oh my goodness. And this is something that took me way too long to realize. As we're talking about with body language reveals everything. So it's very obvious when you get in a conversation whether or not that person wants to be in this conversation. And if that person doesn't want to be in this conversation, there is no use in wasting your energy trying to conversate with this person that doesn't want to be there. So don't waste your energy. What was the other part of your question?
Yeah, how do you really stay present?
Yeah. I think the most important aspect of that is the active part of active listening. So when you start to get your body, and I mean, I genuinely want to be in this conversation because I feel like there's something I can learn. It is a selfish motivation at the end of the day. When I'm having a good conversation and I'm listening and I'm asking you questions, I'm learning. I feel like I'm learning something, so it is selfish. But when you start to add the active part of active listening to your listening, that's when you start to strike gold. So if I'm in this conversation with you and I'm nodding my head,
yeah,
and my body is fully faced towards you, and I'm maintaining eye contact, when I add all these small little pieces, it is going to be hard for me to then lose concentration on this conversation because everything in my body is telling me, I'm nodding my head. Everything in my body is telling me this is the most important part of anything that's going on right now. This is what I need to be paying attention to. So if you can signal to your body that this conversation I'm having right now, even if they are just blabbing about themselves and it sucks and you're like, I wish I wasn't here. If you can trick your body into believing that this is the best place that you can be, that this is the most important thing that you can be doing right now, you're going to keep that attention. And again, it's all, as with all these things, it takes time and it takes practice to get better. But if you can trick your body into really believing that what's happening right here is the most important thing, you're gonna mostly keep the attention. Yeah. I mean, I'm guilty of it. You have those times where you lose focus and then you forget what you're talking about, and then you gotta kind of scramble to figure it out and whatnot. But if you can keep yourself listening, or if you can keep yourself active listening, then that is the most important part. And the last thing I do want to say, this isn't even exactly related to what you just asked, but I think it's important to point out, because you talked about charisma very briefly. I know you guys talk about charisma all the time. But when it comes to charisma, what people don't understand is it's not how you perceive yourself. Charisma has nothing to do with how you perceive yourself. You could think you're the coolest, best person in the world. Says nothing about your charisma. Your charisma is based on how you make other people feel about you. So when it comes to conversation, if you want to be a charismatic, you need to be the last person to talk. I am a firm believer in this. So say this person just blabbed on for 30 years about some boring thing. You need to have some follow-up. You can't just be like, dang, that was crazy, bro. You need to have some sort of valuable follow-up to that thing that they say. Or say that person says a joke that isn't funny. You need to have some sort of follow-up to that joke that's going to make them feel, because by responding to something that they have to say with something of quality and of value, you then signal to them that you, A, appreciated or enjoyed what they said, and B, were listening enough to have, some sort of response to that. So that's the last thing that I'll say about conversation is always be the last person to talk, because nobody wants to be the last person to talk. If you think about conversations you have, whoever's the last person to talk, you think there's a subconscious thing that you think like, oh, dang, whatever I said wasn't cool enough or didn't have enough value for someone to say anything back to. And so by you responding and allowing yourself to be the last person to talk or react in any certain situation, you alleviate all of that in that person, and then subconsciously they have a higher opinion of you. I've noticed this firsthand in people like my brother, who is extremely charismatic like that. Be the last person to talk after some input from them, and just see your value in their eyes just skyrocket. Really,
Dude, that might be the best thing that we've said all night right there, man. Serious. It's powerful.
I think of times where it's like, if someone says a joke and it's like not that great, and then someone like says something else that like kind of goes with that joke and like kind of makes it funny, then everyone's like, oh, it's a good time now.
Yeah.
Instead of like that person being like, that sucked. It's like, oh, well, you just killed the vibe. Whereas like, if you're like, hey, like, you know, like actually like adding to it, then like that person's like, oh, that person saved my ass, dude. Like,
for real.
So
if you notice, the person that says, so I've studied this. The person that says the joke,
yeah,
if they say something and then if they say something that's funny, whether or not people laugh, if you respond to their joke, 100 out of 100 times they will laugh. No matter if what you say is stupid or whatnot, if it's supposed to be funny in response to their funny joke, they will laugh. And think next time you're in a conversation,
they'll also think they're funny.
Well, they'll think they're funnier because you responded.
Your
response to that.
is goofy.
So if they say a joke and say it's a bad joke, but if you say something, if you say something funny in response to that, even if it's not that funny, but it's supposed to be funny, they will laugh because you validated their joke, even though it was a stupid joke. And I challenge you. Next time you're in a conversation,
awesome,
if they say something funny, I guarantee you they laugh.
Yeah.
Guarantee it.
I feel like these are some absolutely pro tips.
Yeah, listen to this episode probably 10 times, guys. I've learned a thing or two about communication, and these things are all 100% things I've heard, and things I need to hear again, and things I need to actually even, what's more important, do them. You know what I mean? Double down. So I mean it. Joe, thank you so much for coming on the show and laying down bars. I really mean that. It's been an awesome, dude. What better way to talk about the art of conversation than to have an awesome conversation and dive into that. So
we've covered a lot of things, from short videos and how you got into video stuff and how you got out of kind of a pit in your life, and how, like, you know, taking care of a dog made you feel better and like propelled you on to the kind of the journey that you're on now, Joe. And then we got into all this kind of conversational stuff, and the whole time having a great conversation. So it's been a really great time having you on, Joe. Where can like people find what you're doing?
Yeah. I love YouTube. YouTube is my favorite platform. I hate TikTok, but I'll still post to TikTok. But if you look up my name, Joe Patros, on any or all platforms, you should find me.
We'll link it to the description.
I'll link in the description.
Can I say it again? We'll link it to the description.
I mean, follow me, give me feedback in the comments. You know, I'm always open to criticism and feedback. I love to hear it. I love to get better. That's me. That's me, guys.
Yeah, come on, dude.
This has been fun. I just want to say this has been phenomenal. This is my first podcast, and I was a little nervous, but you guys do a phenomenal job at making your guests feel super welcome and feel super appreciated. And like, as you guys you said edified, and I think that's a phenomenal word. For someone to be able to come on here, and as I kind of touched on, to be able to share about my passions, and you guys to be excited about my passions, and to be grateful for me sharing my passions like that is, I mean, I'm fired up. You know, I'm normally asleep at this point, but I'm fired up. You guys really did a great job making me feel like someone super special today, and I'm just very grateful for this opportunity. So
it's almost like we had a good conversation with you.
It's almost like
we took your advice. You know,
wow.
it's almost like
who would have thought?
Just 10 out of 10.
Hey man, I don't want to dodge that. We're honored that you would say that and share your story. You know, and I just want to put the plug out there. If you're a man listening to this, similar to Joe, and you want to be a part of what we're doing, this Dangerous Man movement, and helping men change their lives and go after greatness and claiming their greatness. If you want to be able to share your story, definitely make a comment, reach out to us. My Instagram's linked. You can reach out and direct message us. we'd love to be able to share more greatness chronicles and the stories of becoming, as you know, Adam and I obviously are on the show all the time, but it's a privilege to have a guest and to hear your unique twists on it. Obviously, it's different than Adam and I's story, so we're really grateful for that.
The very last thing I want to say is I am just also very inspired by you two. The vision, as I talked about before we started, just having the vision and being willing to step out and make the steps towards that vision is incredibly inspiring. And then to be kind of welcomed into that as well. So I just want to say for people, anyone listening, understand how hard it is to do something like this, to put yourself out there, to be vulnerable like this by starting a podcast, by wanting to do this thing, and just be inspired. Allow yourself to be inspired by it, to see what these guys are doing, and to want to emulate that, to want to do something similar, to want to be better yourself, and yeah, just allow yourself to be incredibly inspired by that, as I have been today, and I'm definitely going to take away from this, and I'm going to head down. It's always grind season, but it's awesome. It's enjoyable to have that vision and to be willing to take those steps. And so I just want to say to you guys, like, I'm so inspired by what you guys are doing, and yeah, keep it up. I've had my socks blown out for sure.
Heck yeah, man.
Well, John,
Appreciate that.
Joe, this is a freaking fantastic time. It's been great. And for all of our guys out there, just find some good people that you can have good conversations with and stay dangerous.
Share the show if you want to help other men embrace danger and become truly great. You've been listening to The Dangerous Man. Join us next time. Until then,
Claim your greatness
and stay dangerous.